Today, I'm going to show you how secretly easy painting large-scale miniatures can be. Yo dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days here in the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California. We're doing it again. Today we're painting Commander Nemo, Privateer Press on deck, one of the official sponsors of Next Level Painting. I'm going to be showing off some new P3 formula paints and a bust. We're doing Commander Nemo, large scale. Today we're focusing on the face skin tones and some sweet lens effects. The cool thing about large models is you can be subtle. The shadows will cast themselves. You don't have to be nearly as extreme to nurture out a real solid effect. We're going to be focusing on that, the basics, but you know we're going to be taking it to the next level. This will be a multi-part series. This is volume 1, guys. Quick shout out to my best friend Mike Haspel, the legendary author of Graveyard Shift. It is happening, guys. The book is being published. It may be published by the time you've heard this. Anyway, wherever you're seeing this video, check the links in the description box below. Pre-order or get yourself a copy right now. Graveyard Shift is legit. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna do a quick roll call. Shout out a couple of clutch individuals, starting with my man Kyle, Chris, Alejandro, Jason, Jordy, Sine, Chadwick, Ivor, Paul, Arcane Cowboy, Alex, Nicholas, Fred, James, Blair. Thank you guys, you came in clutch this week. Patreon is my personal crowdfunding page. It's how I keep the lights on. Thank you. If you guys are looking for a little bit more than this and you want some live Q&A, find me on Twitch, guys. It is changing the game. Let's do this thing, guys. My man Commander Nemo on deck, looking like a true beast. This bust is amazing. Right out the gate, bootstrap leather. This is a new P3 formula. We're gonna use this as the base color for his skin. Now with these large models, you can do pre-shades and you're gonna get amazing results out of that. I happen to favor nurturing colors up from their depths. I just love introducing multiple colors, cheating highlights out, using very thin coats with the airbrush, and the big models like this really lend themselves to both techniques. This is just my preference. So we're getting nice thin coats here. We're using a lot of airbrush flow improver and a lot of water. Bowgrin Brown, another new P3 formula. This is on deck. We're mixing a little bit of this in with the leather, the bootstrap leather, creating a new skin tone, which is the two major base colors of our skin. We're holding it upside down. We're letting it pass over his most predominant features like his brow ridge, his nose, his chin, and his forehead. It's going to stick to those areas, catch most of the highlight, and then we'll flip it around. We'll like exaggerate some of the highlights. This is more of a mid-tone. This is barely above the shadow. This is mainly to create another color, just adding a color to his skin so it's more interesting. We're not really that focused on highlighting just yet. For highlighting, we're going to be relying on another new P3 Midland Flesh. We're not going to raw dog yet. We're going to mix the Midland Flesh in with our color combination. Pretty easy. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to cheat the highlights. We're going to push it forward. Catch the ridges, the nose, the cheeks, the chins, everything, and exaggerate them. And then slowly nurture it up, introducing more and more Midland Flesh as we go. Whole time though, we're going to be maintaining a very thin mix, guys. Cannot emphasize that enough. With these large models, you can just go real slow. You don't have to worry about anything. They're going to cast a lot of their own natural shadows, and they're going to do a lot of work here. Now we're cheating it. We're exaggerating some of the highlights, and you see now we have 3 predominant colors making up our skin right now. Admittedly, there's no rubies and pinks or anything like that typically would make up the human face. That's okay. We're going to do that later. Today is secretly easy ancient Chinese techniques, mainly focusing on airbrushing. Another new color, sickly skin. We're going to add a drop of this in with our mix, with our Midland Flesh, and we're going to add just one final highlight. So now look how many colors are in this skin. Super easy. Now all the rosy stuff that I was talking about, next week we'll cover that, and we'll be using some glaze technique to achieve that. Okay, Thalmar Black. This is one of my favorite blacks actually in all of miniature painting. Now we're going to take a little sickly skin, mix them together with a little Grave Digger Denim, another new P3 formula, and we're going to create this really nice, cool gray. This will be our base color. Now we are going to add a little bit of medium to the mix, a little bit of water, Now we're going to be pulling our paintbrush out for the first time on this project. Thin coats is the name of the game. This is all about patience, guys. You don't want to rush it. Very thin coat. Several thin coats, as a matter of fact. But I will show you an ancient Chinese technique to speeding this process up here in a minute. Don't be afraid to use a big brush here in the beginning and then switching to a more detailed brush to cut in some of these details like this mustache and these eyebrows, maybe the sideburns, anything that you didn't feel comfortable with. But it's always good to have multiple tools on the table. Very simple here. See how thin it is? You can see right through all that gray. It's no big deal. All day, every day. He's looking his absolute best, letting it kind of seal up, letting it dry, letting that new cool gray do its best. And you see, I even did it all over the goggles. I don't care. The goggles are going to be a different color, and I'm okay with them taking on this gray for now. We're going to use the airbrush with a little bit more of our mix that we just made, and we're going to use it to smooth out some of these thinner spots on the paint. Real easy, just holding the model in exactly the right position so that we don't get overspray on the skin. It's all good. Doesn't matter if we get spray anywhere on the model. We haven't even begun painting those sections yet, as we're focusing predominantly here on the face. Okay, sickly skin, yet again, another clutch color. We're going to introduce that to our mix in the airbrush, and we're going to start using the airbrush to actually highlight the hair and get ourselves some nice silver transitions, giving that old gray hair look, but make it real comic book, real flashy, doing our best. And we're going to slowly, as again we did before in the skin, introducing more and more of the highlight color using very thin coats, a lot of airbrush flow improver, and a lot of water in the mix, creating very subtle transitions that are very striking. There we go. Look at how good that looks. It's almost secretly easy. Now, as we move forward, we're going to have to start thinking about how we're going to do that to the eyebrows, how we're going to do that to the mustache. No big deal. Because the good thing here is that this mix in the airbrush that we're using is already thinned down to glaze. So we're just going to pull some right out of the pot that we already glazed up, and we're just going to introduce a very thin glaze over his mustache and over his eyebrows. Probably 1 or 2 coats, real thin, and they're going to do a lot here to blend in that new highlight. Absolutely that easy. He's already looking amazing. Do you see how cutting in some of those details really pops the flesh tone out on his face? And we haven't done anything yet. All right, one last pass with pure sickly skin. Just get that final pop. There it is. Very thin, exactly like everything here. Tons of flow improver, tons of water, helping us really get that pop. And like I said before, it's in the airbrush pot. It's already thinned down to a glaze using a medium and using a water. We can pull right from that with our tiny detail brush when it's time to get back to those subtle details like the sideburns, the eyebrows, and the mustache as before. Look at that. It's beautiful. All day, day. Nemo is looking like a straight beast right now. Feeling real good about this. Now here it is. Here's our glaze on the mustache, using exactly, literally, from the airbrush itself. The same exact paint we used on his hair. Real easy. Look how easy that glaze went on. Let it dry. Do it one or two more times if you want. No big deal. Here we go. Thalmar Black. Let's go back to it. We're going to use this, watered down, to cut in his goggles real quick. Now, I don't know exactly where I'm going with the goggles just yet. I know that I want him to be darker than the rest of them to really break up the model. He's a very soft skin and a very soft hair. So now we're going to take some of that Gravedigger denim, mix it in with our black, and we're going to cut the goggles themselves in. So they're a little bit of a bluish gray. Like I said, I still don't know where I'm going with it. I just want to introduce colors. I thought maybe this is the color I would use, highlight it up. All I know is it needs to be dark to create contrast. See what I'm doing here? Cutting them in. I don't even care. I'm going to cut the lens in, everything. We're just using thin coats here, guys, as per the use. Lay it down. Be methodical. Be patient. Don't get this black on his skin. That would be a disaster. Arcane Blue, one of the greatest P3 colors of all time. We're going to take some out, thin it down, and we're going to start creating that goggle effect. And the way we're going to start here is like kind of a half moon design on the bottom right quadrant of his goggles. We're going to curve the crescent of this moon shape using very thin coats here because it is imperative to maintain very smooth paint on a model like this to make it look its best. So we're going to lay that down, let it dry, do a second, maybe even a third coat, manipulating it. It doesn't matter if this gets back on the rim of the goggles. We're adding a little bit of white to the mix, tracing in a solid highlight here on the bottom right. It doesn't need to be blended too much. Just a couple of thin passes of glaze. It'll blend in enough for now. It's a placeholder. Here we go. In an order that surprises you, we're going to whip out the airbrush again, introduce the arcane blue, and we're going to focus down on the region between the arcane blue and the black that we left. And we're going to start fuzzing that border out using our airbrush. We're going to get real close. We're going to have plenty of flow improver, plenty of water in the pot, and we're going to be using very subtle trigger work, just introducing the smallest amount of paint, maximum airflow. Here we go. Second pass. Now, this might take 2 or 3 times to get that blur just right, but you see how easy that is? That's simple. Second pass real quick. Let's fuzz that border out. There we go. Paint is wildly translucent, very, very transparent in a lot of situations. So it's going to do a lot of work, especially light over dark like this. You're going to get a nice fuzz. Minimal speckling. Now we're going to take a little piece of index card. We're going to introduce a little white to the pot, and we're going to now focus on the highlight that we left there, that we blocked in, and really pop it out. Look at that. Okay, now we're going to grab our black, and we're going to reestablish the faintest hint of that crescent moon shape black border on the top left quadrant of these goggles. Real simple. And this is what's telling me now that the rim of the goggles cannot be black. They have to be a different color, or now we're going to lose contrast with this cool ass transition that we're working on here. You see that? Getting those nice goggle effects. So deathless metal, what better opportunity than to use this new color from P3 than right now? So we're going to thin it down, use a little medium, use a little water. Be careful not to let the metallic flakes separate. That's why I like to use a little medium when I'm working with these metallics. And we're going to just very carefully frame out the goggles over this nice dark gray, which is actually really easy. It's going to get real good stick here. But we're going to frame it in, give it a nice metallic sheen, but this real interesting metallic color that P3 just came out with. It's still going to be dark. We're still going to have contrast, but it's not going to be black. So that way the actual black transition on those goggles that we just established are going to look their best. Absolutely love it. Can't wait to get down to business, dropping some highlights off on this model. Next week, we'll be introducing glazes, washes, and taking this to the next level, guys. Anyway, play on, players.